so many other people. She looks just like him to me. And I hope it's not my feelings, my emotions getting in the way of that. But it's also because when I look at my daughter, I see him.
My stepfather had called me saying that the babysitter was asleep in my room on the floor with the door shut with my wife in there.
She said he was on the bed.
Well, when I had got home that morning, he was on the bed.
She tells me she has an STD, but the doctor calls me the next day. You don't have an STD at all.
I wasn't having sex with anybody but him during the time. So there was no way that he didn't have it.
Ms. Paymer sent 2 different men her pregnancy test results, claiming that they are both the fathers of her child, and now she has dragged one of those men to court, asking him to take responsibility for her son, Jace. Mr. Ross says the only reason Ms. Paymer is doing this is because he has money, and he is certain he is not the father, because he says they always used condoms. Here is how Mr. Ross puts it.
He's denying your child, as we can see, Ms. Palmer. Am I correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
You're raising the child alone?
Yes, Your Honor.
With absolutely no help from Mr. Ross?
Correct.
Jace is 3 months old.
Yes, Your Honor.
So, you're denying that this baby is yours, Mr. Ross, because you say you use condoms throughout the relationship.
Yes, Your Honor.
What was the nature of this relationship?
We were just friends with benefits, Your Honor.
It does not look like Mr. Ross is much of a talker. According to him, this is an open and shut case. But Ms. Paymer does not waste any time in turning on the waterworks and showing us what raising her child means to her.
I can see that this really hurts you. Ms. Palmer, what has it been like raising this child on your own?
It's hard. I raised my daughter by myself, and I never thought I would have to go through this myself, not once again. And it's just like, to deal with this, I feel like I shouldn't have to go through this. I didn't ask for this, but I took upon all of this because that's what a woman's supposed to do.
It is hard not to feel for Ms. Paymer. She raised her daughter alone and now could be doomed to doing the same for her son, but Mr. Ross insists that he ain't gonna do nothing for a child that isn't his. Well, we will let the DNA test decide that, Mr. Ross. Here is how he explains how they met, and it is a crazy story, all right?
So I walked over and asked her, could I pump her gas for her? So she wouldn't have to stand outside in the cold. So I got done pumping the gas, asked her for a number because she was looking good. So once I got a number, we got the text. Next morning, she texted me, good morning. I told her good morning. She asked me what I was doing, asked me I want to come over. I told her, yeah. I asked her to send the address. She sent the address. The address was 0.1 miles away. I said, oh, that's walking distance. I can go ahead and go over there and get some real quick.
Wow, that is genuinely jaw-dropping. So that is why Mr. Ross thinks it's impossible that he is the father of baby Jace. If that happened to me, I also would think I am not the father. Seriously. Mr. Ross says when Ms. Paymer told him she would not get exclusive with him, he broke it off because of the rate of diseases and such. But why was he so scared about the rate of diseases if he used a condom? And Ms. Paymer says it is true.
I wasn't ready for a relationship only because I had just got out of a relationship.
Okay, well that's fair. You were honest. So you weren't ready to settle down, but are you admitting as well that during this period of time you're also sleeping with other people?
I met someone before him, and then it's just like when I started talking to him, it was just only him.
Okay, that clears it all up then. Everything is hunky-dory, and Mr. Ross should just accept that he is the father of the baby. Except that is really not how paternity court works at all. Things are always a bit more complicated, and here is one of such massive complications.
How soon after this did you hear, after this breakup?
Yo, about a month or 2 later, she sent a text message, a picture text message, which was a pregnancy test. I asked her, what's the pregnancy test for? She tells me that it wasn't for me, it was for the other guy she thought was the father of her child.
Okay, things are just starting to heat up here. It makes sense that Mr. Ross would have doubts, because who is he to say she is being honest about him being the father? Honestly, Mr. Ross is just being reasonable here. Maybe that is why Mr. Ross decides to buy her a car seat.
He wanted to, he started claiming my son, sending pictures, everything. He made the statement of he would help me buy a car seat.
I said I would help buy a car seat.
Not only that,
he
he was claiming my son at the time.
Okay, but why would you do that if you did not think there was some chance that the baby was yours? Does that make any sense at all? And Ms. Paymer has some evidence that may prove that the child is indeed Mr. Ross's. She says she has gotten a DNA test with the other guy.
In the beginning of August, me and the alleged father, we got a DNA test. And in the midst of us getting a DNA test and the results came back, I immediately contacted Mr. Ross.
You immediately did?
Yes.
And what did you say when you reached out to him?
Okay, you know what? I think we have heard enough. It is time to get the DNA test results and unravel this mystery. Who is really the father of 3-month-old baby Jace? Mr. Ross or someone else?
Mr. Ross, you are the father.
So what's next after this? Are you gonna step up and be his father? I was without my father for 23 years of my life.
Yeah, he'll take care of him.
Ms. Palmer, I know when you tell me about your life and the fact you grew up without your father?
Mrs. Gamboa has been accused of sleeping with the babysitter to give birth to little Dominic. Mrs. Gamboa says this is an obvious lie, but Mr. Gamboa insists that Dominic actually looks like the babysitter. So who is telling the truth? Let us find out by listening to what Mrs. Gamboa has to say about these preposterous allegations.
On your husband with the babysitter?
No, Your Honor. The babysitter was in the bed at the time that Mr. Gamboa came home, but I did not cheat on him.
Oh, wait a minute. The babysitter was in the bed?
Yes, on top of the bed.
That's on the bed. Mr. Gamboa, you saw the babysitter on your bed?
I was at work, Your Honor, and I got a phone call because we're all living in the same house. My stepfather had called me saying that the babysitter...
Okay, that is at best a little weird and at worst straight evidence of some hanky-panky between Mrs. Gamboa and the babysitter. So which is it? Well, Ms. Gamboa said that when Mr. Gamboa came home, she was in the living room and that the babysitter just slept in their room because he was tired. Okay, but do you really believe that is what happened? Ms. Gamboa elaborates a little bit for us. Why did they even have a male babysitter?
The thing happened was the male babysitter was his decision in the first place. It was a mutual friend of ours that he knew more than I did.
Discussed. Doesn't
and
mean
then
that
he was not
he can
living
come
with
into
us
the room
at
and
the time.
sleep.
He was not living with us at the time. And Mr. Gamboa offered him to stay with us because he was homeless with his 2 children.
No, we had both.
So you took in his children?
Right. And ever since then, it's been a living hell for me.
Well, that sounds like an interesting living situation. Mrs. Gamboa says that at one point they had about 8 kids in the house. That is a lot of work for one babysitter. So let us get to the other point. Why does Mr. Gamboa think this child looks like the babysitter?
He looks just like him, and then he walks like him.
I mean, the babysitter walks like me too, and
no, he
look
doesn't.
at the back of his
No,
head.
The babysitter walks like you?
No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does. And the back, I mean, the back shape of his head too looks just like the babysitter's.
He looks just like his dad. He has the same bump in the back of his head.
That does not sound like a particularly good reason, does it? Well, Mr. Gamboa might think he has issues with his fertility, but he clearly already has one son that he does not deny. So why is little Dominic's paternity an issue to him? But it gets weirder for Mr. Gamboa here.
Only Dominic and not our first son.
Well, Your Honor, when we conceived our first son, we were all living with her ex. We were all living in one house. So I mean.
Right, and he knew about it.
All of you all were living in one house.
When we first got together, we were in high school or junior high sweethearts.
So if I couldn't conceive with my first wife, and then all of a sudden I conceived my first son.
Okay, yeah, that is weird, but it has nothing to do with baby Dominic's paternity, right? Weird people do weird things all the time, but that does not change whether they are parents of a child or not. Well, it gets even stranger because Ms. Gamboa suspects the babysitter of something very horrible.
I strongly believe that our babysitter was trying to mess up our marriage, because at the end of this whole situation, our babysitter, when we kicked him out, he had no place to go. He went to Mr. Gamboa, oh, you should leave her and let's get a house together. And then he would come to me behind his back and be like, oh, let's leave him. He's no good for you.
He was snapping photos.
We should get a house together.
Wow, can we get that babysitter in here to talk about his own side of the story? Mrs. Gamboa goes on to explain just how badly she has been treated by Mr. Gamboa because of his paternity doubt, and it is really depressing stuff.
When I gave birth to Dominic, Mr. Gamboa was there 13 hours throughout my pain, suffering, everything. He cut the umbilical cord, gave him a kiss, took pictures with him. 20 minutes after I gave birth to Dominic, he left, gave me a kiss saying he was gonna go get clothes and come back because I was in a lot of pain when I had Dominic.
Yes, that's right. Anyway, it is time to really figure out whose baby this is. Is Mr. Gamboa here Dominic's father, or does that honor belong to the babysitter? Let us find out right now.
Mr. Gamboa, you are his father.
Thank you. Thank you. That's your baby. Bond with him. No more excuses. Bond with him.
Yes, I will. I will be his father.
So, Mr. Gamboa, your fears have been laid to rest. That is your son, beautiful, handsome son, and you've now missed out on 1 year.
Ms. Johnson named her child after one man and is now claiming that another man is the father. Both men are in court today to discover who actually is the father of little baby Jeremiah. Mr. Rice, who Ms. Johnson now says is the father, says he is certain he is not the actual father and says he knows for certain who the real father is, and that is why he has never come to see the baby. Here's how he puts it.
Mr. Rice, you say you are 100% certain you are not her child's biological father, and you claim to know who is.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so Ms. Johnson, Mr. Rice has never met your son?
No, ma'am. Since he was born, he wasn't at the hospital or nothing like that.
Wow, That is cold. Real cold. The funny thing is that Mr. Rice never even dated Ms. Johnson. Mrs. Johnson broke up with her ex and was in her feelings. And that is how she got with Mr. Rice for a rebound. They slept together, and then Mrs. Johnson found out that she was pregnant. And then this happened.
Me and Mr. Rice had already talked about, he said he wanted kids, and I didn't think it was a problem. I thought he would be happy that I was pregnant. And he was happy, but then I don't know.
Then what?
I got in my feelings, and I broke up with her. I think it was more.
And what did she do next? Well, she went back to her ex while pregnant and got with him. Here is how that entire gig looked to Mr. Rice, who was initially happy he was going to be the father of a baby.
I realized that my feelings wasn't as strong as they should have been, so I told him that I didn't want to be with him.
So, Mr. Rice, tell me your side of the story. She tells you she's pregnant and you say you're happy at first?
Yes, I was excited about it until she decided to tell me it could be her ex's baby or it could be my baby.
Oh, okay. That changes a lot of things. In fact, it changes basically everything. Mr. Rice always wanted to have a child, and now the woman he wanted to have a child with was telling him that she wanted to break up, and also that the kid in her belly might not be his. That is devastating. What is more devastating is what the doctor told him.
Well, I go to about one doctor's appointment with her. And after that, she tells me she has an STD. I say, okay. So I go to the doctor, I get checked, I take the medicine. But the doctor calls me the next day and tells me, sir, you don't have an STD at all.
That doesn't make sense to me at all, Your Honor.
That sounds suspicious. So who should we believe? Years and years of medical research saying something like this should not be possible. Or Ms. Johnson. In other words, should we believe her over our lying eyes? Anyway, she continues to insist that she did not cheat. And Mr. Rice says they never had protected intercourse, ever. So who does he think is the biological father?
That means she was cheating already.
I haven't cheated on him. I haven't been with anybody else but Mr. Rice.
But it doesn't make sense, because right after we broke up, maybe a week or two later, she was right back with her ex.
But he knew that I wanted to be with my ex. He knew, because I told him I don't have feelings for you like that. I mean, I care about you, but I don't love, I'm not in love with you.
That is crazy. Now you can really understand why Mr. Rice is so adamant that this baby isn't his. Anyone would think the same, right? Anyone. Now let us hear from the other man who might be the father in this case.
She admitted she got an STD and he did not have it. So did you have one that you could pass to her?
No, ma'am, because we had took a test too. I didn't have it.
You did not have it?
Yes.
So, Ms. Johnson, was there somebody else?
No, I've never cheated on in any of my relationships. So honestly, I don't know how neither one of them didn't have it.
Okay, that's not very believable, but we will take her word for it. And now, it is time to talk about the gigantic elephant in the room. If Mr. James is not the father and Mr. Rice is, why did Ms. Johnson name her child after a variant of Mr. James's name? Let us hear what Ms. Johnson has to say.
Baby Jeremiah has a middle name, Samaj.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Your Honor.
Which is James spelled backwards.
Yes, Your Honor.
And that's Mr. Williams.
Yes, Your Honor. I felt like since he was there from day one that he should get some kind of credit for, being there and taking care of him. So I didn't feel like that was a problem.
We ain't in school. This ain't an extra credit.
Exactly. Judge Lauren, this is certainly one of the reasons Mr. Rice believes so strongly that this is not his baby. Well, it is time to find out what exactly is happening here by checking the DNA test results and seeing whose baby this is.
In the case of Johnson versus Rice, pertaining to whether Mr. Williams or Mr. Rice is the father of 6-month-old Jeremiah Johnson, it has been determined by this court the biological father is Mr. Rice. You are the father.
Miss Moody does not know who the father of her 2-year-old is because she was sleeping with 2 men who happened to know each other at the time the baby was conceived. And she did this all without protection. Mr. Brackens wants the child to be his, but he cannot be sure because of Miss Moody's bed-jumping antics. And here is what Miss Moody has to say.
If the results don't turn out to be the way that I need them to be and the way that I have full 100% confidence that they are, my family is on the line. And like I said, my family is everything to me. I don't want to lose my soon-to-be husband. I don't want to lose what we have. We have something beautiful. And I just really, really need to prove to him that Raylan is his daughter.
Well, let us see how that goes. Mr. Bracken says that this entire fiasco has affected his relationship with Raylyn, the daughter in question. He says she means the world to him, but this paternity doubt is destroying his family. And here is how the doubt started.
And so that was very hard for me to figure out, okay, how am I gonna stop this and pick this up and be faithful to him and show him he is what I want in life. He is where I wanna be. It was very hard. It was very hard for me to tell the other guy because I can't lie. I had caught feelings there too. There was a sexual relationship. I had caught feelings there too.
So wait, how did you even find out, Mr. Bracken?
Your Honor, I found out through a family member.
What happened?
He was like, hey man, I need to let you know that you're not the only person.
Wow, that is heavy. So Ms. Moody admits that she was cheating on this man who had love and affection for her with another man she also loved. And that is the entire reason she is in court today. But hold, wait a minute, because it gets even worse when Judge Lauren asks an interesting question.
Okay, but for the purposes of this courtroom, we need to understand this specific question. While you were with Mr. Brackens when he got back in town, you were still intimate and having sex with the other person too. So you were having sex with both men during that period of time?
Your Honor, I would go spend the night with Mr. Brackens, and I would literally leave his house in the morning, go to my house.
Yeah, that is more than enough for a really strong paternity doubt. And it gets even worse because just a week and a half after leaving the other man, Ms. Moody finds out she is pregnant. This means it is very probable that the other man is the father of Raylyn. No wonder Mr. Brackens is tearing up because this is a genuinely horrible situation to be in.
Ever since then, the day that he gave me the ultimatum to be with him or to be with this other man, and I chose him. Even though I had done so much garbage, he didn't hold it against me. He respected that enough that I was okay. I'm gonna get my stuff together. You're putting your foot down. I'm moving in with you, and this is what I want. To be honest, my family member, his ex at the time was teasing about being pregnant, and I was like, well, if you'll take a pregnancy test, I'll take one.
This must be so painful for him, especially as he loves Raylyn with all his heart. It is a horrible situation to be in. He initially wanted to take care of the child without ever doing a DNA test, but despite his devotion, his doubt continued to creep in.
And yet, despite your devotion, your doubt still kept creeping in.
Your Honor, I can't even put it into words. I just been worried about taking care of another man's baby the whole time, but I just looked over it. I just looked over it because I fell in love with this child ever since she came. When I'm in the floor playing with her, throwing her up in the air, going to the park.
In the back of your mind, you're thinking,
I could be taking care of another man's baby.
That is so painful. And things got worse because the other man is still in the picture and has now said he thinks that the child could be his because of some resemblance. Here is how Ms. Moody puts the entire situation.
I lost all contact with him throughout the 9 months of pregnancy, blocked social media, blocked numbers, phone numbers blocked, everything was blocked. After my daughter was born, this man starts getting friends of friends and trying to say, you know, that baby looks so much like my youngest baby. He has 3 children of his own, and he was trying to compare my child to his.
So the other man saw pictures of Raylyn?
Yes, Your Honor, he did.
Wow, this is a truly upsetting situation for everyone involved. But the only way to move forward is to check the DNA test results and see whether Ms. Moody and Mr. Brackens will be able to deal with the truth. Let us see what is in that envelope.
Mr. Brackens, you are her father. How does it feel, Mr. Brackens, to look at your beautiful little girl with no doubt in your mind, not another thought?
It's amazing, Your Honor.
Mr. Brackens, you have done an amazing thing for this child.